Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a PLE predictions video, this time working on Survivor Series 2025, set to take place on November 29th in San Diego, California. Per usual, we will put a prediction out for every single match set to take place in order that kind of makes sense, and the grand scheme of things don't really matter that much. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first match of the night, which is the Women's Survivor Series Wargames match, which includes Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and AJ Lee. Call this Team AJ, I think, for the most part of the IWC, and going up against Lash Legend, Nia Jax, Kairi Sane, and Asuka, and of course, Becky Lynch, calling this one Team Becky. KB, do you have a clear winner here for the Women's Survivor Series War Games match?
Yeah, I think I do. You look at both teams, and obviously there's a lot of talent, across the board here. But I think you look at the left-hand side team, Team AJ, Team Rhea, whatever we're going to be calling it, and the star power on display is absolutely crazy. You got AJ Lee, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss. I mean, that's a super team right now, right? There aren't really many women superstars that you're going to get that's going to sort of elevate this team per se. So yeah, it's a quality quintupler here. So yeah, I think it's going to be the win here for the faces. I think generally over the past few years in women's war games matches, we do normally see the faces win as well. So on that sense, I would like to see a heel victory perhaps in this case. But I look at the other team and I think the faces winning does make more sense. There's a whole lot more momentum with the heels at the moment. Recently, definitely in regards to I guess Nia, Lash, Asuka, and Kairi. Obviously, you could argue Becky, is the only real deficit in that sort of sense. But yeah, with the four of the five of them, doing pretty well as of the last couple of weeks, well, a few weeks. I think, yeah, it makes sense to knock them down maybe just a little touch, and then have the faces bring themselves back up a little bit. So yeah, I think that makes most sense to me. I'll go with a win for Team Rhea, Team AJ, whatever. And yeah, just hoping for a decent War Games match. I think there's always a worry that because teams have been thrown together and things, that it's just going to be a little bit of a spot fest and stuff. We've seen that over the years, so we have also seen very good matches on the other side of that. So hopefully it's the latter in this case, and we do get a good contest here, the one that we can enjoy, one we can have fun with, and one we'll remember as well. So yeah, I think Team Rhea and AJ, whatever, to get the victory here over Team. I guess we'll go with Becky.
Yeah, why the build has favored the heels, the faces did stand tall on the go home show of Raw, and we kind of mentioned it on the Raw recap, and that the Raw episode very much felt like a go home episode for a PLE. Now, they could still do more stuff on SmackDown, but obviously this is what we know now. Because we still don't have an advantage, so possibly we could see an advantage match take place on SmackDown. But regardless, for what we have, obviously that's the only way we can make the predictions here. The heels haven't really had any issues in terms of like friendly fire. That same cannot be said for the face team, which of course has a lot of drama, which all seems to have a common denominator, and that of Charlotte Flair. And it wasn't long ago, Charlotte didn't even seem willing to join the team at all. So she then clearly struggled with the idea of teaming with Rhea, considering their past. So that could very much play a part in this match. But, kind of as you alluded to, in the end, I think the face team just has an abundance of talent. And I think, no disrespect to the heel team, but outside of Asuka and Becky as it currently stands, I just don't think have the star power to quite match the faces. Although that being said, the heel team winning here would certainly help them in that regard and kind of give them a boost, if you will. What a win that would be for Lash Legend, who I assume is now a mainstay on the main roster. But in the end, I think I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Team AJ Lee or Team Rhea, however you want to call it, Team Faces here. Let's go with that. I think are the correct choices here. But the real question for me is how long do we have to wait until you see EO jump into a trash can? So there's that as well. Oh, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the next match, which has Dirty Dominik Mysterio going up against John Cena, who is defending his Intercontinental Championship. KP, I know we talked about this one a bit, both on podcast and off air already, but who do you see coming out of this one? Is it clear cut, or is this one a little difficult for you?
I think there's an element of difficulty here. You can look at, I think, either side of the situation here. So let's start off with John Cena first and making a case for him to win. If John Cena wins, he ends his PLE career, I guess we could say, with a victory. So his last ever PLE appearance will be a win. Defends his Intercontinental Championship, which therefore logically makes the last time is now tournament, reward final, whatever you want to call it, against Cena at Saturday's main event, an Intercontinental Championship match. So I guess you can say that there's definitely, ways that could be sort of thrown to that situation. So I think that does make sense to me. I don't mind that situation whatsoever. I think probably what is more logical, though, is that Dom just does win back the IC title. Because then Cena doesn't really have that title going into Saturday's main event. And if they are going to go with someone like Gunter, for example, who does win the tournament, he doesn't really need the IC title anymore, in my opinion. So I think, considering he's a favorite at the moment to win, you could look at it on the other side of it and maybe say, oh, what about someone like LA Knight? And then in that case, yeah, the IC title being on the line would be great, and he would be, awesome having that championship around his waist. But I just think naturally and logically, I think Dom just winning the title back does make sense in my opinion. It's awkward because you really can make an argument for both sides here, and I would love to see Cena win his last ever PLE match at Survivor Series. That would be great. That would be awesome. But I think just that possibility with the Saturday's main event, I think it's just a big cloud that's coming over here for me, and it's sort of like clouding my judgment and like affecting my decision making here. So I would go with Dom to win, and then we obviously see what happens from there. He's currently in this thing with his dad Rey Mysterio, so maybe that could play into it in some sort of way. Yeah, I guess we'll see. But then again, on the other side of it, maybe Judgment Day come on down, try to help out. I know I know there's been sort of like I don't know, differences between himself and Finn Balor recently in like the past number of months. But I feel like in the last couple of weeks they've actually been sort of I don't know, basically forgetting about that. They've been sort of like bringing themselves back together a little bit more. And then maybe we do see sort of Ray coming down to sort of, I don't know, aid Cena in that sense. So maybe even we could have that be the case as well. I think there are so many opportunities here, so many possibilities. But I'm going to go with Dom to win. And that's just my gut feeling. And I think it just makes the most sense if I dig down really deep. So yeah, I'm going to go with Dom to win. What about you, Nick? This is quite hard for me. Is it difficult for yourself as well?
Well, it's definitely it's pretty close to a 50-50 for me because there really isn't any hints as to which way it will go, at least that I picked up on. But also, and maybe this was intentional, maybe it wasn't, you calling this John Cena's last PLE match. I can't imagine you would not regard Saturday Night Main Event as an actual PLE, right? You A playful jab there. KP does not like Saturday Night Main Events, but I had to do it. As previously mentioned, when Cena won, you know, you like to think he would probably give it back up before he retires. You don't want to see that kind of relinquished, or at least I don't. I'd rather see him use the opportunity, as he always does preach, to leave the business in a better spot than when he found it. Of course, if he loses to either Dominic or the winner of the last time is now tournament, he is doing just that. So I think it makes a lot more sense for Cena and the way he kind of preaches that mentality to lose either here or Saturday night at Saturday Night Main Event. I would argue it makes more sense to do it on the last time is now, but obviously, stuck between a rock and a hard place because, it is somewhat obvious that you are going to lose it, assuming that is the route you're going to go. Um, I'd rather see him lose it at Saturday Night Main Event, but that's just a personal preference because I don't think Dominic needs to win it back here. I think he has plenty of momentum as it stands. But obviously, a win over John Cena in his second to last match obviously doesn't hurt your repertoire either. So I think there will be some shenanigans here, but I do think I'm going to have to agree with you. But my confidence is not super high for this one. But I do think Dominic, with some shenanigans, will win back that Intercontinental title. Getting into the next match, we have Nikki Bella going up against La Primera, Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. In a build that can be described as quickly as follows: Nikki turned on Stephanie after supporting her the same night, and then attacked her once again as she was last seen on Raw, making her way to the ring. This was the not the last Raw, but the Raw before last. That's the build. Nikki saying she doesn't deserve to be. She didn't come back to be on this put on the sidelines. So that's your build. That's all we got. KP, is there any chance Stephanie Vaquer loses here? Um, Nikki Bella clearly not going to out wrestle Vaquer, right? But does she have something up her sleeve? You know, she is a veteran. You know, she is a now a heel. So, but you know, to me, it makes sense that maybe she would have something up her sleeve to kind of make sure that she knows she's not as good. But can she outsmart the face here?
Yeah, this one's billed with definitely Stephanie Vaquer being absolutely the 100% favorite going into it. I think that's absolutely fair to say, and I think it's quite safe as well. Since, like you said, since turning heel, Nikki and Steph haven't really had much of a build. There's been an attack, and that's basically been about it. So we don't really have too much to sort of gauge upon here going into this contest. As for Nikki's chances of winning the matchup, I'd say very, 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 very low. I can't imagine a situation where Nikki Bella does beat Stephanie Vaquer, except for perhaps if she does a little bit of twin magic that we've seen over the years, you know, back in her prime. But I mean, based on current WWE, I don't know if that's really a possibility. I'd like to think it's not. So yeah, I think ruling out Brie Bella, I think is completely fair to say. I will go with Stephanie Vaquer, you know, seven days out of seven, and you know, maybe even twice on Sunday. So yeah, I can't see Steph's reign ending. You know, not the Nikki Bella. I think maybe the more likely opportunity, well, the more likely situation here is that Nikki loses to Steph, continues to get further frustrated, and then maybe just targets Maxine Dupree for the Intercontinental Championship. I think that's maybe more of a realistic situation, perhaps. So yeah, Steph walks out here with the championship. I've got no real doubts about that. I'm pretty damn confident, and yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to go with. I'm just hoping that we don't see any twin magic, and you know somehow we actually do get a title change here, and I'm gonna hope for that. I'm gonna hope we don't get that.
Yeah, no offense to Nikki and or Brie, but yeah, I for some reason, I'm struggling with this one, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope when we come back for the reactions video, we can confidently, you know, just come on and say, "Hey, if I care when, you know, right woman won, great for her. Let's move on." But for some reason, I can't shake the feeling that Nikki just turning heel. Obviously, she's not an up and coming talent, so it's not as important to make that heel turn as effective. Like say Naomi when she turned heel, we wanted to, or at least we felt like she should win sooner rather than later to make her heel turn effective. And I kind of feel like that's the feeling I can't shake here, which is, you know, Nikki just turning heel. But like I said, at the end of the day, I hope we're both right. I hope Vaquer does retain here. It would seem like a giant step back for her to lose to Nikki Bella, even if shenanigans are involved. You know, still very, very early in her reign. And I think we can both safely say that Vaquer's in ring ability is just a tad better than Nikki Bella's. So I think all those factors, I hope, leads to Vaquer retaining here. But if Nikki is to win, I think she would have to have some shenanigans involved. So that would be two matches in a row if this is the card order to involve shenanigans to win the match. So another reason why I don't think they're going to do it, but for some reason I just can't shake it. But like we both said, Vaquer to win here and retain that women's world championship. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what I presume will be the main event, and that is, of course, the men's Survivor Series Wargames match. And this one, including Jimmy and main event Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Cody Rhodes, going up against Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre, Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and more. KB, how you feeling about this match in terms of kind of comparing the women's and the men's match? Any similarities here, or do you have a clear winner as well?
Well, I think first and foremost, just get my sort of initial, you know, expectations, reactions, I guess, to you know, sort of the build and looking to the match itself, really here. And just generally speaking, I've got very little hype for this matchup. I think they're just throwing they're just throwing people together. They just, put the champions in because they haven't got title matches for them, just keep them busy on the card. It seems quite lazy and just a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, once this match is over, are we really going to get anything to re-talk about afterwards? I guess we'll have to wait and see. It depends how it really goes, but I can't really see this affecting anything afterwards, so yeah, I'm not sure what to really expect from that, but just general enthusiasm levels are really, really low for this contest, and I couldn't really care less for it. But remaining professional, talking about it as a contest here, and generally what I think could happen. Yeah, I mean, you look at the left hand side, and you just think, there's just there's three middle names there: Cody, Punk, and Roman. Just so much quality between the three of them, and generally speaking, it's going to be hard to really stop that. But then you look at the other side, and you think, those guys are absolutely, they are jacked. There's so many big guys on that team vision, I guess we'll call it. So you have Logan Paul being maybe the only one that isn't really in that caliber, but he's generally just a very professional, very incredible performer in his own right, just very agile and brings a different style of things to that match, which could be really important for them. So yeah, I think I'm keen to see how this one plays out. You do look back to at the start of the month where CM Punk was, well, face to face with Logan Paul originally. So could we see Logan Paul maybe get a victory here on behalf of Team Vision? That maybe that maybe could be a possibility, I suppose. But I guess it depends how the match flows and things like that. Maybe that was a little bit of a seed they planted earlier on this month to sort of like set the scene for the next title challenge for CM Punk. But yeah, in regards to how the match could go, I think it will be quite hellacious. I think it will be quite brutal. There'll be a lot of hard hitting action here, which could be quite fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know. Just the enthusiasm levels aren't quite up as where they should be. I'm gonna go for Team Vision to get the win in this one. I just generally think that the team of the faces to win this one doesn't really make any sense, whereas Team Vision, I think, could really gain a lot from this, especially the likes of Drew McIntyre and possibly even Logan Paul if he is going to challenge CM Punk. Drew obviously being in a feud with Cody recently, I feel like him winning, well, being on the winning side would just sort of keep him in that conversation, and it wouldn't give any excuse to really knock that down a particular notch. So yeah, I think it makes more sense for Team Vision to win here. So I'm going to go with that as my final prediction. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens at War Games. But hopefully it will be better than I think it will be. Hopefully I'm actually more, looking into the matchup itself. And I guess we'll just see what happens. But that's just my general vibe. What about you, Nick? Well, who do you think is going to walk out this one on top? And how do you feel like it's been built and booked together? Do you think it is quite lazy, or do you think, this is just the best of the situation we have right now, and that's what they've gone with?
Yeah, in terms of the build, yeah, it does feel kind of thrown together, but you could argue, I guess, a lot of these Survivor Series matches always kind of tend to be. Um, yeah, it's clear in terms of star power. They went for it. They put in, a lot of their big names. I think a lot. Some people could argue, there are a few names missing, but for what we got, yeah, I think the faces having Roman, CM Punk, and Cody. I think that's that quite possibly one of the most loaded Survivor Series teams we've seen in quite some time. But for the matchup itself, I think this is pretty much the opposite of the women's side. I think the heels have a much higher chance of winning, as you alluded to. Obviously, have much more to gain. A win here for them with a lot of younger talent. Obviously, helps kind of elevate their momentum in the company quite a bit. Where the teams are more evenly matched, I think there's too many cracks on the face side. Jey Uso being one of the biggest ones, and that he's recently teased, being more heelish and kind of being more selfish, going out for himself. Seems like we kind of stop and start that whole thing, but I think that is a possibility. And then, having three of the biggest egos, as previously mentioned, in Roman, Cody, and Punk on the men's side, which was very much highlighted on the last episode of Raw. Punk and Cody trying to figure out whose team this actually is. Meanwhile, Roman's, sizing up his next championship reign, presumably in the near future. I can't imagine why Roman would have done that, or at least they would have had Roman do that, if not for a bigger and better reason. So I think in the end, I think the heels just have a much better gelled team right now on the same page. Not seeing any cracks in the heel team whatsoever. Whereas the face, I wouldn't surprise me if anyone kind of starts friendly firing during, before, or after the match. So um Yeah, for better or worse, I think we are going to be on the same page for every single pick here, which does happen probably more often than we'd like to admit. But I do think that the team vision will find a way to win here, and I think it's just the right choice. Like I said, it just has much more to gain for them than the faces winning and kind of keeping down the competition. So I think it's a matter of who turns their back on who in the faces match. But clearly, a lot of egos at play there. But with that, all the Survivor Series matches here discussed and predicted. KP, one last bit from you. How are you looking forward to? I'm basing your kind of hype on the men's side, maybe perhaps a tail overall, but is that kind of the same tune you're singing for the event in whole? How are you looking forward to it, and what are you thinking will be the match of the night?
Yeah, look, we're meant to be being honest here, right? So I think it would be an injustice of me to sort of come out here and say, I really am excited for this one. It's going to be a great show. I mean, and it could be a great show. Obviously until we see what happens, there's no way we can predict that it's going to be bad or whatever. But just general hype going into this one, looking at the matches across the card, being obviously there's only 4 matches, but there are 2 war games which are going to be quite long. So I get it, I understand that, but honestly, I there isn't a single match on the card that I'm really excited for. Like the women's War Games match, I think is probably the one that I'll enjoy the most across the course of the night. John Cena's last PLE could be a great watch as well. So I guess we'll see what happens there. And the other 2 matches I don't really have too much real interest in. So yeah, I guess we'll just see. It could be a lot better than I think it will be, and I hope that is the case for sure. But yeah, initial reactions at the moment and anticipation levels are quite low. So yeah, we'll just see how things go. But I'm optimistic, and I'm always open to having myself proven wrong in these situations. So we'll see. But I think I'm most looking forward to the women's war games match, just because just there isn't anything I can really sort of not look forward to in that matchup. So yeah, I think that if that's going to open the show, then it could be an interesting last, I guess, 2/3 for me. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, in what should be a very personal PLE and that of Survivor War Games, meant to the War Games matches in particular, meant to kind of resolve or at least help resolve long, long going feuds. For this one to be kind of thrown together the way it has, obviously doesn't really play into that aspect. So, yeah, kind of similar tune you're singing. My expectations are on the lower end as well, but a lot of times I kind of go in with those low expectations. It does help me with kind of the reactions and how I feel. So like if even if it is not the best war games or Survivor Series, our expectations were low, so it's not met with huge disappointment. Whereas if the matches are great, with a lot of the builds not being super strong, that's a surprise and a pleasant one at that. So definitely helps us look forward to that reactions video as opposed to if we have super high expectations and we come in and doesn't quite deliver. So yeah, I think the women's war games match should be good. I'm hoping that Vaquer and Cena match are good as well, but like we said, just not a ton of build. I think the men's match actually is the one I'm looking forward to most. I think there are just so many possibilities, endless possibilities, really, in terms of what could happen with that face team. So I think that's kind of where my main focus will be throughout the show. Just and that match should be absolute carnage. Just thinking of all the things that we could end up with has me looking forward to that aspect. So yeah, like I said, expectations low, and I think that's the safest and best approach. Hopefully we come back here on Sunday. We're like, hey, we had low expectations, but they were greatly surpassed, and we can, talk about all these things that we loved about it. So with that, Survivor Series War Games in San Diego in the books. If you like what we're putting out here, please let us know in the comments below. If you'd like to share your predictions and tell us what we did wrong, we'd love to hear that as well. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us out tremendously. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.